In this video, we explore the hypothesis of whether the extinction of the Neanderthals was caused by a brutal wipeout or a slow decline, and look at recent evidence from France, the Middle East, and Germany. The story of human evolution and dispersal keeps getting more complicated. New finds at a cave in the Rhone Valley, in southern France, reveal that around 54,000 years ago, modern humans from the Middle East arrived and made a failed attempt to settle the continent. The finds were discovered in a cave, known as Grotte Mandrin in the Rhone Valley, and it was astonishing when they found that there was evidence of an early modern human settlement. Moreover, they occupied a cave where Neanderthals had lived before, and would live after them. Radiocarbon analysis and luminescence dating established that the modern human layer in Grotte Mandrin is between 51,700 and 56,800 years old. It wasn't a Neanderthal Blitzkrieg by modern humans. Sometimes Neanderthals had the advantage, sometimes modern humans had the advantage, so it was more finely balanced. The modern humans appear briefly, then there's a gap where maybe the climate just finished them off and then the Neanderthals come back again. However, the era of the Neanderthal came to an end quite suddenly. Based on an analysis of the known archaeological sites, Neanderthals reached their population peak right before their population rapidly declined and they eventually became extinct, in what could be termed a hominid catastrophe. In Germany, Neanderthals completely disappeared just 3,000 years after their population peaked 45,000 years ago. Remarkably, at the height of their dominion, they suddenly and almost inexplicably died out. Although this has been known for some time now, a new study highlights just how rapid their extinction was. Neanderthal 1 is the scientific name of the 40,000-year-old type specimen fossil of the species Homo neanderthalensis, found in August 1856 in a German cave, the Kleinfeldhofer Grotte in the Neanderthal Valley, 8 miles east of Düsseldorf. In 1864 the fossil's description was first published in a scientific magazine and officially named Neanderthal, and the Neanderthal description represents the beginning of paleoanthropology as a scientific discipline. As a side note, in 1901, an orthographic reform in Germany changed the spelling of Neanderthal, removing the H. But scientific names, such as Homo neanderthalensis, remained unchanged, because the laws of taxonomy retain the original spelling at the time of naming. Between 110,000 and 70,000 years ago, there were just 4 known Neanderthal settlement sites in Germany. In stark contrast, between 70,000 and 43,000 years ago, there were 94 Neanderthal settlements. Based on current archaeological evidence in the region, they had completely evaporated from the scene just 1,000 years afterwards. First off, this disappearance, which culminated in their species extinction 2,000 years later, is ludicrously rapid. In evolutionary terms, this short time frame of the demise of the Neanderthals in 2,000 years could be considered a blitzkrieg. Secondly, this evidence suggests that from the very height of their empire, German Neanderthals went extinct within just a couple of thousand years. These maps shows Neanderthal sites in Germany up to 43,000 years ago, which was the height of their population. Only 3,000 years later, Neanderthals were completely extinct. Asking what killed off the Neanderthals is to ponder on one of the greatest scientific mysteries of our time. Our big-headed evolutionary cousins disappeared almost without a trace around 40,000 years ago, and there is no agreement as to what permanently resigned them to the bastions of history. Is it a coincidence that humans arrived at the height of the Neanderthal reign over Europe, and soon after our evolutionary cousins fell into a sudden, terminal decline? Probably not. Either way, Europe was ours 40,000 years ago, and the light of the Neanderthals was, enigmatically, extinguished. In France, the evidence suggests that an early group of humans lived at the site for a relatively brief period, of perhaps about 2,000 years, after which the site was unoccupied. The Neanderthals then return, occupying the site for several more thousand years, until modern humans come back about 44,000 years ago. French archaeologist Ludovic Slimak suggested that some of the smaller tools might be arrowheads. If confirmed, that would be quite a discovery, an early group of modern humans using the advanced weaponry of bows and arrows, which may have been how the group initially overcame the Neanderthals 54,000 years ago. But if that were the case, it was a temporary advantage, because the Neanderthals came back. The study also suggests the modern human group was part of an incursion from the eastern Mediterranean coast. That didn't last long before they again vanished from Europe, one of the early waves of Homo sapiens migrating to the continent. They may have numbered a few hundred, including women and children. It's a real group, making an attempt at a real colonization of Western Europe. The clearest evidence is a single baby tooth from a modern human child, aged between 2 and 6, that was found in a layer of clay and sand sediments on the floor of the cave. There is one indirect piece of evidence showing there was some contact between the two groups at Mandrin. While their technologies varied greatly, they used the same raw material to make their tools, flint. The researchers were able to trace the origin of the Neanderthal and sapiens flint and found that it came from the same deposits, in some cases almost 100 kilometers from Mandrin Cave. So you can imagine the surprise of the archaeologists at Mandrin, when thousands of tools typical of the initial Upper Paleolithic culture of the Levant turned up in the French cave between older, and more recent layers of classic Neanderthal tools. This distinctive stone tool culture, dubbed the initial Upper Paleolithic, is characterized by light and slender spear points that could be mounted on javelins and projectiles. These long-range weapons gave modern humans a clear advantage over their Neanderthal cousins, who used heavier points and spears that had to be thrust directly, at great risk, into whatever beast was on the menu. Modern humans were here, Neronian points. These standardized technologies have no equivalent among the Neanderthal groups before and after the arrival of the first modern humans in Grotte Mandrin. These flint sources are small and can be hard to find. This suggests that when sapiens arrived they had some contacts with local Neanderthals, possibly using them as scouts to gain knowledge of the area. In ethnography, the use of locals as scouts is typical of pretty much any colonial project in history, and there is no reason to think that our distant ancestors behaved much differently from Spanish conquistadors or European settlers. The archaeologist says. Since there are no other known modern human sites from this period between the Levant and France, one question is how and why did these sapiens interlopers travel so far to settle in the Rhone Valley amidst the Neanderthals? There must have been several attempts to colonize Europe, with this being one of the earliest, and many of them must have failed. Maybe they were not numerous enough. Maybe they were planning to mix with the Neanderthals, and they couldn't either because they didn't have good enough relations or because the fertility between the two was limited. How did those early pioneers migrate so far, without leaving traces of habitation in between? One possibility is that they moved along the coast, and any sites on the way have since been submerged by the sea, which was much lower during the Ice Age, according to Professor Slimak. But he also makes a second, surprising suggestion: perhaps they traveled by boat. After all, some researchers believe that modern humans reached Australia around 70,000 years ago, some think this occurred even earlier. Others put the date quite a bit later. In the case of Australia, there is little doubt that humans had to navigate across the water because there was no land bridge connecting this continent to Southeast Asia. So, if Homo sapiens could build boats in the Far East at this time, why not do so in the Mediterranean? The study also examined dozens of flint points found in the cave sediments, which are thought to be from the heads of arrows and the darts used in spear throwers, or atlatl, devices used for casting small spear-like projectiles. The points were made with the distinctive flint knapping techniques called Neronian. These are the same type of point that likely killed a Mesopotamian Neanderthal around this same time in what is now northern Iraq, as evidenced by the deep slice in his 9th rib. If this slice was made by a Neanderthal spear, the damage would have been much worse because Neanderthal spearheads were much larger. Because Neronian points are only found in the Rhone Valley and in the eastern Mediterranean, the people who made them arrived in the Rhone Valley on boats. The Rhone is one of the Mediterranean's largest rivers, and that the occupation of Australia by modern humans in boats occurred at the same time. It is very likely that these navigation technologies were at this time well known by all of these Eurasian modern populations. However, A later French Neanderthal met a grisly fate. She was devoured by humans. The fossil discovery bears marks of butchering similar to those made when cutting up a deer. One of science's most puzzling mysteries, the disappearance of the Neanderthals, may have been solved. Modern humans ate them, says a leading fossil expert. In fact, Neanderthals met a violent end at our hands, and in some cases we ate them. The controversial suggestion follows publication of a study in the Journal of Anthropological Sciences about a Neanderthal jawbone apparently butchered by modern humans. Now the leader of the research team says he believes the flesh had been eaten by humans, while its teeth may have been used to make a necklace. The idea will provoke considerable opposition from scientists who believe Neanderthals disappeared for reasons that did not involve violence. Neanderthals were a sturdy species who evolved in Europe 300,000 years ago, and survived several ice ages before they disappeared 40,000 years ago, just as modern human beings arrived in Europe. We know that Neanderthals made advanced stone hand axes and that they used them to chop firewood. But I don't know that there's any direct evidence for a Neanderthal actually chopping down a tree to clear forest. Some researchers believe Neanderthals may have failed to compete effectively with Homo sapiens for resources, or were more susceptible to the impact of climate change. But others believe our interactions were violent and terminal for the Neanderthals. The discovery in southwest France provides compelling support for that argument. The evidence provides crucial evidence that humans attacked Neanderthals, and sometimes killed them, bringing back their bodies to caves to eat or to use their skulls or teeth as trophies. For years, people have tried to hide away from the evidence of cannibalism and warfare, but I think we have to accept it took place. This is a very important investigation, because we do need more evidence, but this could indicate modern humans and Neanderthals were living in the same area of Europe at the same time, that they were interacting, and that some of these interactions may have been hostile. This does not prove we systematically eradicated the Neanderthals or that we regularly ate their flesh. But it does add to the evidence that competition from modern humans probably contributed to Neanderthal extinction. So, if it wasn't a case of our species wiping them out immediately, what was it that eventually gave us the advantage? Many ideas have been put forward by scientists: our capacity to produce art, language, and possibly a better brain. But it was because we were more organized. We were networking better, our social groups were larger, we were storing knowledge better, and we built on that knowledge, especially when it came to tools and weapons.
40,000 years of evolution and we barely even tapped the vastness of human potential.